Welcome to the DMF. I am your host, Justin Yance. This is episode 97, and this is the wrestling show. And I'm going to talk about the WWE releases. I'm going to talk about AEW Double or Nothing. I'm going to talk about AEW Dynamite. I'm going to talk about WWE. I'm going to talk about Mick Foley, and I'm going to talk a little bit about Grizzly Smith, living in the shadow of Grizzly Smith. So stay tuned. So let's talk about the releases that just came out this week. It's kind of came as a shock to a lot of people, but Braun Strowman, Aleister Black, Lana, Murphy, Ruby Riott, and Santana Garrett were all cut. They have all been released by WWE. Now, I got to believe that there are more releases coming. Some people don't think that, but I've got to believe that the releases they're coming. Braun Strowman is the biggest shocker because, he was at WrestleMania in a prominent role. He beat Shane McMahon. He was a former world champion. You don't normally see world champions being released. Apparently, though, he had like a $2 million downside. So he wasn't really producing what I think a lot of us thought was great work. He's not really great on promos. He's not really great in matches. He's kind of an attraction, and at a point where a lot of us believe that the company is being sold or trying to be sold, they want to cut costs to a minimum so they can sell this and, for as high a dollar as they can. And Braun Strowman is probably the biggest setback for that, or the biggest consequence of that. I always enjoyed him. When he first came in, he debuted with the Wyatt family, and, he kind of looked like Eugene's brother. And I guess I was the only one that noticed that, but, the way his beard was and everything. And then they completely changed him around. They started to push him on Raw, and he had the feud with Roman Reigns. And then he was really hot, and they had him face Brock Lesnar, and then they beat him. And then that really just started to kill him, and then he just became the guy that, he's big, but he doesn't win the matches. He doesn't win the big ones. And then when Roman Reigns got hurt, Braun Strowman got the run as champion, and it was horrible. Now, his run as champion was not great, but he did the best he could with what he had, but a lot of people saw him as just on borrowed time till The Fiend got a hold of him, and he lost to The Fiend. But then we saw Roman Reigns return, and Roman Reigns has pretty much taken that spot, and he's never really been the same. He lost in the three-way at WrestleMania Backlash. I don't see him going to AEW. I think he could do well in New Japan as like the only monster they really have if they wanted to push him, but, I don't know, his style doesn't really work in the New Japan world. No pun intended. TNA could probably take him, or Impact Wrestling. He could maybe do ROH. I think he's going to leave the business. I think he's going to pull a Ryback, and he's just done. But I don't know. We'll have to see what he does in the next 90 days or whatever. Aleister Black was another one that was kind of shocking because they had already started to redo his character, and then they just release him. He attacked Big E, and that was going to be the big feud, and now he's gone. And it's just like they just continue to do things that the other hand doesn't know is happening. Lana, once they broke her up with Rusev, that was it for her. They tried to turn her into a wrestler. She did the best she could, but she's just not a wrestler. I hope that she, I could see her going back to acting. I could see her, doing more work on Instagram. Maybe she comes in as Rusev's, Miro's second. But he's been doing well getting over on his own. So I don't know. We'll have to see. Murphy, they used him, then they didn't use him. Then he was a protege of Seth Rollins, and we never had a real resolve with that. So I think his best bet is to go to New Japan. Ruby Riott, I see her going to Stardom, ROH, Impact. She could end up in AEW. She's a really good worker, but Vince was never going to see. Obviously, does not get that vibe. Santana Garrett, I saw her in Women of Wrestling, World of Wrestling, WoW, where Tessa Blanchard was there, and I thought she had, a lot of potential, but they earmarked her to go to the roster, and then she never came up, and then she's just quietly released. I could see her going to AEW. I could see her going to NWA. I think she might go to NWA. I think she would have the best success there, as they want to be different. But yeah, not good for a lot of those guys. I mean, it's kind of sad. But I think we got more coming. We'll have to see what happens on next Wednesday if we get more of these people. But, they weren't doing much with these guys. I think, a Chad Gable or an Otis might be the next on the chopping block, but we'll have to see. WWE is just, I don't know, it's not good. It's not really good. And I really think Samoa Joe is coming into AEW, so I don't think they want another powerhouse guy like Braun Strowman. Just to have these big guys, they don't need anymore. He's a big guy, but with Almost on the roster with WWE, well, they really didn't need him. What was he going to serve as a purpose? I don't know. I think he also fell into the trap of saying yes to everything, and then when he wasn't good at everything, they just release you. It's a sad state of affairs, and what can you do? But I wish them all the best. I think a lot of them can do well. Oh, I didn't even say where Aleister Black could end up. He could end up in AEW. I could see him going to Mexico. I could see him going to New Japan. I could see him going to Impact. The only thing I have with AEW is, they've already got another dark character like that, and that's Darby Allin. Do you need two? I guess he could be a nice rival. We'll have to see what happens. Does he bring in Zelina Vega? We'll have to see. And when we come back, I'm going to talk about AEW. So let's talk about AEW Double or Nothing. I thought this was a pretty good show. It's not, well, it feels like I'm saying that every time, but it really wasn't my favorite. I really enjoyed the last pay-per-view. Was it Full Gear? What was it called? I enjoyed that one much better. I thought it was a much better show. The only problem was the main event kind of left it on a dour note. The big things that happened were Britt Baker, as I predicted, won the title. The whole crowd wanted to see her win, and she did. I don't know how they think they're going to keep this woman a heel. She's basically a babyface acting like a heel, but you know what? That might be good if she acts like a heel, but is a babyface. See how they can, but does it to heels. That's the way I think to go with Britt Baker. But she was completely over, and when she won, the whole place exploded. For me, I thought the match was kind of sloppy. I don't know if that's their fault, because it looked like she kind of got hurt a little bit in the match. So that happens, that is going to hurt the quality of the match. I didn't like the interference. I thought the interference was unnecessary. I don't need to see that. I wanted to see her win. She can cheat, but I don't want to see somebody else cheat for her. I don't mind her cheating, but, she needs to do it, herself. I don't like this second thing with Rebel. I know I'm in the minority here, but I don't like it. But I'm glad she won. I think it's the right way. I feel bad for Hikaru Shida because she took up the torch of the women's wrestling throughout the whole, pandemic, and then we come back to fans and she gets beat. They get a new belt, she gets beat. So hopefully they gave her the old belt as a nice, tribute. The other match that was really good was Serena Deeb versus Riho. That was really good. Serena Deeb needs to be in AEW. She needs to be the focal point, and she needs to be the person. There's so much you can do with Serena Deeb. I know people are like, well, she's older. Yeah, I don't care. She is the best women's worker right now that I'm seeing. At least in the States. There could be better people in stardom, but Serena Deeb is just so polished, and she does these little things that are just so great. She really enhanced Riho, and I think, some people are calling this the best pre-show match ever, and I would tend to kind of agree with them. The Young Bucks versus Moxley and Kingston. That's my favorite match. This match was so good. I mean, they had interference in there, but it wasn't like the finish. So I'd kind of give them, props. I would prefer no interference, but I don't know. I guess that's the way they're going to try and get heel heat. But the Young Bucks have been the stalwarts in AEW. They have every single match they have is good. They never have a bad match. Now, some people don't like their style. That's fine, but they work all these different styles. They worked with, Moxley, they worked more of a brawling style. And I was watching this on a phone, and I was riveted. I thought this was such a good match. Best match of the night, the Young Bucks versus Moxley and Kingston. And the Young Bucks are just, they're amazing. The three-way, Kenny Omega versus Orange Cassidy versus Pac. Good match. Don't like the finish. This was not the finish I want. I liked when he hit everybody with the belts. He took all four of his titles and hit them but the roll-up finish, it's like, that's not what I want to see. I mean, they made Orange Cassidy look good. Pac, looks good kind of, but not really. The work was really good, but that finish, that really left a sour taste in my mouth. I don't want to see... It's starting to feel like the NWO, where we're just getting run-ins over and over again. But, so that hurt it for me. I couldn't really enjoy it the way I wanted to. And I don't know, there's something about Omega. I don't know what he's missing, but it just feels like, he just feels like a guy holding titles instead of the main guy. And I think it's because they're not... The show needs to stop when the champion comes out. That's what it feels like when Roman Reigns comes out. That's what it feels like when a Brock Lesnar comes out. That's what Omega needs to feel like. And it's more about the positioning and the way they do their television. They're trying to get 1 million segments in. And sometimes I think the criticism of they do too much could be true. And Omega just, he needs to feel like the top guy, the most important guy. Not the second most important guy, not one of the most important guys, the top guy. And he just doesn't feel like that. Miro versus Lance Archer. Good match. Good, nice little hard-hitting match. Miro wins. He didn't tap out, so that's how they kind of keep him strong. Darby Allin versus Sting. Darby Allin and Sting versus Ethan Page and Scorpio Sky. They had a good match, and Sting showed that he can still move, and he did a lot for a guy who took a power bomb and, a couple of months ago. It's amazing. It's amazing at his age he can do that. I do agree with Dave Meltzer. They probably shouldn't have taken the shirt off, but he looked great. He did a great job, and then he gets the win, and it was a really good match. I thought it's exactly what it needed to be. Exactly what it needed to be. What else do we got here? I feel like I'm missing a match here. I'm going off of memory, which is not always the best way to go about it, but the Double or Nothing, the Battle Royal. They put over Jungle Boy. Smart. Jungle Boy now gets a match against Omega. That's a good way to make him mean something. I can't wait to see what Omega does with Jungle Boy, because Jungle Boy he's the future, man. He is just coming into his own. Oh, Hangman Page versus Brian Cage. They had a nice match. It looks like I gotta believe that Hangman is probably gonna be the guy to face Omega next, but I don't know at the big pay-per-view, but we'll have to see. Christian put over Jungle Boy, huge. I mean, Jungle Boy winning that Battle Royal was awesome. The Mystery Man was I can't remember. That's kind of sad. Who was the Mystery Man? The Mystery Man was... Who was the Mystery Man? I can't remember. Oh, yeah, I already know it. Leo Rush was the Mystery Man. Apparently, he got a handshake agreement. I don't have to read that. I already know that. And then the main event. We had the Stadium Stampede. They went all over the building. They did a great job of pacing it. My only problem is it felt kind of like a rerun, but they did a good job. Sammy Guevara gets the win. The crowd was cheering for them. I gotta say, one thing I heard that Jericho said is they're trying to get Back in Black for their group, and I think that would be a cool way to have them come out. And I hope they still try to get that. Apparently, Back in Black wouldn't let them. I mean, AC/DC wouldn't let them, or the people that own the rights to it. But I think if they keep working at it, they'll get it. A good show. Good match. You know, Sammy Guevara gets beats Sean Spears. It looked like everybody, got the beat down in. So the Pinnacle gets beat down, and Conan made a appearance with his old LAX guys. And that was cool. Nice little trip down memory lane. And so there you go. That was a Double or Nothing. I thought it was a good show overall. It's just not my favorite. I liked last month's better. Even though the barbed wire didn't work, looking at it in hindsight, I still like that show better. I still think they have net. I'm hoping All Out is the show that blows everybody away, because I want a show where they don't have any mess ups, and we still haven't had that yet. AEW Dynamite. The big thing that happened was Andrade. He has debuted. He is now with All Elite, and he's apparently going to be with Vicky Guerrero. And came out in a suit, and he cut a promo, and they gave him the star treatment. Mark Henry, cut his thing. Oh, yeah, I forgot about the other thing. The big surprise was Mark Henry coming out. So I guess he's now an analyst for Rampage. So, I don't know, it's a good use. I mean, I know some people don't like that Big Show's there and stuff, but, he's not wrestling. He's not killing guys. He's doing commentary. Same thing with Mark Henry, and I think they'll do a good job of recruiting guys. So since Mark Henry was the one who got Braun Strowman, he could get a shot at AEW. We'll have to see. He's gonna have to change his style. He's gonna have to, be different. But who knows? Maybe if you took the gloves off him and you just let him do powers, just power moves, and he didn't have talking stuff, maybe he comes off good. But then I wouldn't put him next to Wardlow. I wouldn't put him next to Lance Archer. I almost said Vance Archer. I wouldn't put him next to Miro, because he's going to make those guys look small. But Andrade's there now. Leo Rush is there. A lot of, WWE guys. I don't know how good that is. The Young Bucks versus Pac and Penta El Zero. They ended up. Young Bucks ended up winning, but they did cheating, and I didn't really want to see that, but that's what they did. What can you do? That's just the way it goes in this company. What's the other thing that happened here? Well, it's on Friday nights, and I don't think that's the best night for them. Yeah, Pentel's here. Mark Henry spoke. We talked about that. QT Marshall. Oh, yeah, the Anthony Ogogo versus Cody. Some people liked it. I didn't have any desire to watch it, and I didn't really care, and I barely watched it, but it was a pretty good match, and It seems like Cody is doing stuff that the other guys are not doing, and it's just like, I don't know, he just feels like he's there. The QT Marshall thing just doesn't mean anything. The Inner Circle had a celebration. They said they're not done with the Pinnacle, so I don't know. Jungle Boy looks like he's going to be facing. He will face Omega. I don't think he'll win, but I think he'll look good in defeat. Britt Baker had her celebration. I thought that was lame. But I don't know who is Britt Baker is supposed to face. I don't know. Maybe she gets another. Well, it looks like Nyla Rose and Britt Baker is the thing. It's like that does not excite me at all. That just seems like such a lame match. They made matches for next week. Miro versus Evil Uno. I don't really care about that match. It just doesn't do anything for me. I did love the Miro thing. You know, he did a promo. He thanked God. He thanked his beautiful wife. Or he said he thanked his wife for being hot. The main event was Dustin Rhodes versus Nick Camorato. You know, they had a nice little match. Nobody's going to really remember it, but it was good. And it looks like AEW is coming to Charlotte. And I guess I'm going to try and go. So I can give my first live report of AEW. But I think I'll go. So I thought AEW did a good job. I think we're looking at Omega, Hangman, unless they're going to get like an Okada or something special, which they need for All Out. I just don't think Hangman and Omega, that does not feel like a main event. I'm sure we'll get Chris Jericho versus MJF. I don't know. That doesn't. I'm kind of done with the Pinnacle and the Inner Circle, but they want to keep this going. Britt, I don't know who she's going to face. And it just... Young Bucks, I gotta believe Santana and Ortiz are gonna be the ones to probably beat them. But I don't know. Maybe they're gonna do it. Maybe they'll do something like with a team that we don't know. Maybe Jungle Boy and Luchasaurus are the ones that do it. We'll have to see. But it was pretty good Dynamite. Not great. Nothing to write home about. Double or nothing. It's still better than anything WWE does, so you got that. But the matches still are not as good as New Japan. And when we come back, I'm going to talk about WWE. So let's talk about WWE. It's awful. And Raw is awful, and I'm not even going to talk about it. I don't care about this Bliss thing with the doll, and Shayna Baszler is just looking like a fool. And it's awful. That's all I can say, is it's awful. Let's talk about SmackDown. SmackDown's a much better show. We got Roman Reigns out there. You know, he cuts a promo. He's great. Looks like he's going to be facing Rey Mysterio at Hell in a Cell, which should be a good match. But nobody believes that Rey Mysterio is going to win. And the problem with WWE is they don't have anyone that people believe are going to beat Roman Reigns. I mean, all signs point to SummerSlam, Roman and Cena. And then I think Lesnar versus Lashley. I think Lesnar, takes out Drew. And I think what we're looking at is probably Lesnar versus Lashley. Lesnar versus Lashley. Maybe they do something where Lesnar gets the title back and then it's a three-way. Something like that. But yeah, I don't know. Not much to write home about. They had Dominic Mysterio and Rey Mysterio versus the Usos. They have the match. The Usos don't win. Then they have another match, and then it ends with interference from Roman Reigns. Not great. Not great stuff. I'm going to see if I can try and talk for 5 minutes about WWE, but it's very hard to get 5 minutes out of this show because just nothing happens. Kevin Owens versus Apollo Crews. He gets attacked by the Abado Nazira guy, so Owens loses. He's been so damaged. That feud that he had with Roman Reigns just hurt him. Sami Zayn came out or something. I don't know. I just don't care. I don't care about WWE. There's like nothing I care about other than Roman Reigns. I really hope Daniel Bryan does not come back here. Please don't come back to this company. They have nothing going on. Nothing. Don't go back there. And I'm hoping for that. But yeah, Roman Reigns, he's the best thing on the show, and he's the only thing on the show. NXT looks like they're having a 5-way. I don't care about that show either. There's nothing to care about. I mean, if they were smart, they'd bring Walter up and push him as the monster and give him the title on day one and let him just kill everybody. And just let Walter be Walter. That would give you an attraction on Raw. Pay him whatever he needs to get there. They're not going to do that because they want to sell this thing, so they're trying to keep costs down, so he'll just remain in the UK as the best kept secret that they don't do anything with. Now, part of that is because he doesn't want to go to America, but I'd be like, find a way to get him here because you've got nobody. So that was SmackDown, and then, Roman looks great, but everything else is just boring, and it just feels like we're in a holding pattern. This is that slug to, it feels like January to Mania. Okay, we know where we're going. Then it's the April to August, where just nothing happens until like July to August. That's when things will pick up. And then we're in another holding pattern until basically the Royal Rumble. That's it. This company just rolls like that, and I don't know who is enjoying this company. I don't know who enjoys WWE, who enjoys the bliss with the doll, and who is enjoying any of it. Other than Roman Reigns, that's the only thing I can see anyone enjoying. It's just such a bad show. That's all I got to say about that. I can't talk anymore about this company. It's just horrible. And when we come back, I'm going to talk about... We're going to talk about Dark Side of the Ring and Mick Foley. So let's talk about the Dark Side of the Ring in the Shadow of Grizzly Smith, as well as Mick Foley, the A&E documentary. Let's start with the positive one. Let's talk about the A&E documentary that they did on Mick Foley. I really enjoyed this one. This one's right behind Shawn Michaels, and it really showed his journey, and it showed what made him special. And they kind of left you with this haunting feeling about where he is with his career now. Because they showed how he pretty much was willing to take risks that no one else would take. Anyone that knows Mick Foley and knows that's what he does. Then they talked about, him going to WCW, and then he quits WCW, and then he goes and does the death matches, and he comes back to WCW because they need him to face Sting. And then he goes to ECW. And then from ECW, he goes to WWE, or WWF at the time, and he gets Mankind. And through Mankind, they find out that he has this character called Dude Love that he created. And then he finally becomes Cactus Jack in WWE, which when he became Cactus Jack in WWE, it's really interesting because it happened in the Garden. It was, I believe, September 22nd, 1997. This is the same night that Austin stunned McMahon for the first time. And when they showed Cactus Jack, the place just exploded. It really showed, I think, Vince back there that, Cactus Jack is an important character. He never liked Cactus Jack's character. He thought he was sleazy, as some have said. So then they talk about Hell in a Cell, and they talk about how that was, what a dangerous match. And they just talk about, the ramifications of that. Now he wanted to, steal the show. He didn't want Hell in a Cell to be this gimmick match that went nowhere, because Shawn Michaels and Undertaker had such an amazing match. And then after it's over, he asks Undertaker how he's doing, and Undertaker is like, "Are you kidding me? What about you? How are you feeling?" I mean, he dislocated his shoulder. He knocked out his teeth. I mean, so many amazing things in there. Although, if you look at the death matches, those took a bigger toll on him. I mean, landing on C4 explosives and, an exploding ring and things like that. That just, he talks about the match he had with Terry Funk when they, basically they both ended up in the hospital bed. So it's really cool. And then they start talking about how, he stepped away from his career and then he kind of fell into depression. And then when his wife had another baby, he had to kind of come out of that. They talk about 1999 Royal Rumble and, that was kids kind of, they kind of put a lot of that out of their mind. They talked to Noel. They talked to his, son, I believe, Dewey. They talk about the Kane Dewey promo, which is one of the best promos you'll ever see. I mean, when he did that, and he said he was fine with that. The fan showed him the sign. He was like, yeah, that was cool, but his wife saw it and was horrified. So he used that as the catalyst to turn heel in ECW, which is amazing that he could do that because he was beloved. It's very similar to when CM Punk turned heel in ROH. He was the most beloved guy ever, and he wins the title and he turns heel. And that's similar to kind of what Mick Foley did, except they didn't have the title, but going in the direction of what the audience never thought they'd see. And then they talk about, he talks a little bit about, was it worth it? And he says it's worth it, but I kind of question if he really does think it's worth it. It sounds like it took, he regrets the TNA run. He says nothing good about that. He says, if he, had the 4 matches, that's a good way to end it. But, he kept doing it. And then he said that little things that didn't give him pain started giving him a lot of pain in TNA. So they kind of bury the TNA thing, and then they put over the WWE's, health stuff. It was, it's designed to make, Vince's company look really good, but Foley comes off really good. And he's such a good speaker, and, listening to all the other people talk about it. They didn't get Rock to talk about it, and I'm kind of surprised they didn't get Terry Funk. He was needed. They talked about Observer, Dave Meltzer, when, he said that, you got to watch this guy. This is somebody to watch. And he said from that review, Dave Meltzer basically, he got, 3 offers from huge companies. So people that like to rip on the Observer, they forget about that like his work helped get like Mick Foley seen. So it's not all bad. But I really like this one. And, a lot of it's old hat for me, but, but it was told in a different way. And, I liked hearing, about how him and his wife met and, just kind of how he thinks. I mean, they got Paul Heyman on there. Paul Heyman, loves Mick Foley, loved working with him. They have Ric Flair on there who kind of says, what are you doing? When he got his ear, lost his ear in Germany, he was like, why are you working so hard for like 20 people in Germany? He's like, nobody cares about this match. Nobody cares about it. And I think he's got a point there. I think if I asked Foley now, I think he would have said, I think I would have taken it a little easier on the little spot shows, like the house shows and things like that. Because he went full blast on a lot of those shows, and it's like that. You can't do that all the time. You have to pick and choose. And I think if there's anything different, I think that's what he would have done. Or maybe he would have done everything the same way because it led him to where he is. But I just think with all the hip surgeries and everything that he had to go through, he could have done that. He talked about, getting into comedy. He wanted to be just doing straight comedy, but he found out his audience really just wanted to hear him tell wrestling stories, which is true. But he is funny, the way he tells his stories. So it was nice. I really enjoyed this one. I mean, it doesn't have the Dark Side of the Ring depth that, you're going to get with that. This is WWE's production, and they have such a hand in it, and they're pretty much, saying what can and can't go. Now let's talk a little bit about In the Shadow of Grizzly Smith. This one really broke me down. I was crying many times, and I had no idea what Jake Roberts had to go through or what Rocket went through. Aurelian Smith is his real name. I didn't know that about. I mean, I probably should have known that, but yeah, Grizzly Smith was his father, and they, talked to Houston, his brother, and his brother kind of always got along with the father, and they kind of played each other up. But the thing I didn't know about was that he was a pedophile, and he pretty much kind of committed incest with his kids. And he did this with a lot of people, so I don't know where to go with that. That's just... And people knew about it, but it was back in a time where they kind of just put all that under the rug. It kind of reminds me of what, Deborah said, where they just put makeup on her when they would see bruises. And I feel like that's kind of what they did here. And they just seem... I mean, you can tell Jake Roberts pretty much became Jake Roberts to escape who he was. Because it hurt too much. I mean, him and his sister pretty much grew to hate their father. Houston loved the father. And then they have the son who didn't get into wrestling and kind of escaped it all. And he kind of says at the end how, he's going to try and maybe make more contact with them. But he saw the gamble that wrestling did on them. But wow, I did not know he went through that. I didn't know that, how abused they were. That's something that doesn't really get talked about in the circles. I mean, it's kind of swept under the mud. I mean, Houston always saw his father as like Superman, but, Jake grew to hate his father. And Rocket, it was called, was it Red Rocket? Is that what her name is? I mean, I kind of regret looking at this because it's such a Rockin' Robin. Sorry, Rockin' Robin and Sam Houston. Not Sam Houston, the promoter. Wow. I mean, it sounds like it really messed them up. And they say at the end of it, he says, no matter what happens with this, if you are going through what we went through, please go tell somebody. You have to tell somebody. You have to get it. Go to the police. Go somewhere. So it was kind of an episode about a warning of like, let's not let this happen again. And it sounds like Jake has kind of gotten through it. I mean, he said when his father died, that he said that when his father, he thought it went away, but it didn't. And they asked him, did he ever apologize for what he did to him? He said no. So it's kind of unresolved. I mean, it just shows how much you got to thank DDP that he was able to help him, because that's a hole that you really don't get out of. And he was able to escape that, and now he's living a great life, and he's still alive. And Jake is such a great story of redemption. It just, I didn't know about that. This was probably one of the darkest Dark Side of the Rings I've seen, but they're pretty much all dark. They're called the Dark Side of the Ring, but if you want a nice, good story, watch the Mick Foley one. If you want something that's going to give you a warning about the dangers of the world, watch In the Shadow of Grizzly Smith. That was... And then seeing what happened to their sister, how, they kind of play it up like maybe Grizzly Smith was in on it because he never cried when she disappeared. And they said they had all the evidence, but they had no one to pin it to. This abduction, kidnapping. I mean, just the stuff they all went through. I mean, it's amazing. It's amazing. But I think at the end of this, there's a sign of hope. And with that, I think that about does it for this episode. I want to say thank you for listening as always. And you can find me at my handle at Justin Yance, and I will see you next time on the DMF.